Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome to the first retro review of 2023. And this week, thanks to the patrons and YouTube channel members, they voted. We put two options up on the table. The first WWF Raw and the first WCW Nitro. And here we are.
Survey says
Another one for Ted Turner. We're doing WCW Nitro today on the first retro review of 2023. We're going to do one of these a month. I feel like one a month is good.
One a month is good, especially if we're doing, not 3-hour pay-per-views, but shorter shows.
Right, yeah, exactly. Not everything's going to be a 3-hour pay-per-view. We might do like a 3-hour pay-per-view here and there if it's appropriate. But we'll do these old, especially these old episodes are like 45 minutes long. And so that's pretty manageable for us on a monthly basis. Mm-hmm. And then, when it maybe like we'll do our own big four, we'll do like an actual pay-per-view at some point. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see how it all works out. But yeah, this week it's funny. I'm glad that we're doing the first Nitro because I've told you this over the past couple days. I did a rewatch on Monday night, the very first Monday Night Raw. And eventually, when 98 rolled around, I became firmly a WWE guy. I have no regrets about that. Mm-hmm. That first Raw from 93 is dog shit. It is not good.
A lot of WWE's product from like 92 to 95, 6, not very good.
Yeah.
Not bad there.
Yeah, it's funny. What's interesting to me is like sort of doing a little bit of research into all this stuff is how and it's funny because somebody asked me the other day on like a Wrestle Juice video. Yeah, I got this Guy Evans Nitro book right here, right?
Yeah, I have that somewhere too.
And they asked, what other wrestling thing would you like to see a deep dive on? And my answer was like Vince and the Territories. Now I've got a book about that, but it's very dry, and this is a pretty colorful book.
Yeah.
But you know what I'd actually like to read up on, because it's still kind of confusing to me, is WWF's TV philosophy before Raw. Because if you remember, they had shows on cable, but like so much of their programming, so much of the cable programming was, let's see what happened in New York. Let's see what happened here. Let's see what happened here. It was piecing together stuff that they had filmed from all over the place.
Yeah.
So or from their loop anyways.
They were taping live events, airing matches from that. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
There was, and like, for example, Superstars, for the longest time, you'd have a match or two, maybe three, but then there was all sorts of little vignettes.
Mm-hmm,
character vignettes. And then Tuesday Night Titans was the one, I believe, where Vince had the talk show set. Maybe that's where his love of talk show segments began.
Could be, yeah.
Their programming was kind of all over the place prior to Raw. When with the birth of Raw, a lot of it kind of seemed to coalesce around Raw being the centerpiece of their larger programming schedule. Yeah,
which is pretty interesting. Like during that first episode of Raw, they like aired a commercial. It was like, "Hey, New York, be sure to watch this show on your local station."
Yeah, when stuff was still syndicated. Yeah,
right. Yeah, it was all syndication stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know, that aspect was pretty interesting. So the fact that they started, Raw started going, weekly. It wasn't always like, they would do live, but they would do tapings. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of interesting. They have theirs, like the center of your programming universe only started with Raw instead of, back during the Hogan WWF days. And then of course, 2 years later, we get the first episode of Nitro. And of course it was just, as this book, sort of tells the story, They really just wanted to make money off of WCW, and they weren't doing that. Yeah. And Bischoff's goal as a young executive at the time was, let me actually turn $1 here. Let me get in the black, so to speak. And so Ted Turner, the story we've all heard, Ted Turner's like, well, what do you need? And in my mind, of course, it's what's his name, Will Forte, as Ted Turner,
writing Ted Jr. Yes,
right. What do you need? And then and Bischoff said, let's go head to head with Monday Night Raw, which is kind of a dog shit program. I'm sure anything could beat that at this point.
Anything we do has got to be better than Raw. Take a look at it.
Right, exactly. What was also interesting in this book was Bischoff had said that as part of the launch of Nitro, they did some extensive research. They just didn't decide, hey, let's just run a show against WWF. And so WWE's philosophy at the time, and you can go back and watch Raws, especially the first couple of years of Raws, their main philosophy was matches that are competitive belong on pay-per-view. And everything else, or unless it's like NBC's Saturday Night Main Event or whatever.
Stuff like that, yeah.
But like for the big special shows, that's where competitive matches happen. Everything else is basically just jobber matches.
It was like Darker Elevation, AEW Darker Elevation. Yeah. Yeah.
That was their TV programming strategy. And Bischoff, through his research, or through the research that they paid to have done, discovered that people want something more compelling. That's basically how he puts it in the book. He's like, it was fascinating to see that people want something that's compelling. and so we set out to make something that was compelling and not just obligatory TV.
Yeah.
And so even in the first match, on the first Nitro, which was Jushin Thunder Liger versus Brian Pillman, Bischoff as commentator makes a point of saying, these two have styles that are very evenly matched, and look at how they go back and forth. And it is a really good match. I'm kind of surprised Dave Meltzer only gave it like 3.5 stars. It's a very Dave Meltzer thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a really good match. I mean, it would probably, belong in a sort of a best of a Super Juniors type setting. But it was a really good match. And yeah, like you have, the second match on the show was Sting versus Flair, which is, it's what's interesting to me about the write-up on all this is that Bischoff did, even with him bringing cruiserweights in a little bit later, he really did want to bring some level of, okay, this isn't just the normal fucking shit you get from WWF.
Yeah. We're going to give you something different. Yeah.
Right. And so bringing in cruiserweights, bringing in luchadors, et cetera, you're going to get some thrilling wrestling. Flair and Sting had to follow Pillman and Jushin Thunder Liger. They didn't have like a cool down match. It was like, no, let's go right into these guys who historically have amazing
the
chemistry.
Cornerstones of the company too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to Liger and Pillman, that was at least their second match. They had a match back in 1992 at Super Brawl.
Okay.
They have another one too? No, that's Super Brawl 2. I felt like they had another one, but I could be wrong about that. So it was, a rivalry they revisited, probably because they knew the outcome. The results of that match would probably be really solid. Hey, let's kick off our show with something that WWF, for the most part, ain't doing. Yeah,
right. Yeah. Also kind of interesting. So just looking at a little bit of the history before we dive into the minutia of the show, it was kind of interesting that this first episode of Nitro was on September 4th, 1995. September 4th and the prior week, August 28th, WWF, for whatever reason, I didn't see this, or I didn't see the reason why, but they were preempted. They did not run shows.
Was it the dog show, the Kennel Club dog show?
It probably was the dog show. Was it running back in the mid
Westminster Kennel Club?
Probably. I mean, it was running in '98. I know, so it had. Wouldn't shock me. But they weren't running. What I noticed when I watched the preceding episode of Raw from August 21st, and then the one after it was the September 11th episode of Raw. The first one they went head to head. They had a brand new intro with like some fucking weird like half country sounding song, and they filmed like a bunch of weird shit. Like they filmed like on seeming on, it was probably 16 millimeter, just shot really nicely, but it was on film. They shot like Nash and a couple others in the ring, and then like Shawn Michaels is on top of the building dancing while a helicopter goes by. It's the first time that McMahon had brought in some cop cars. And then like Shawn Michaels like dives off the roof to get into the ring. It's very cinematic, the intro that Vince McMahon had countered seemingly Nitro with, because Nitro of course had that like, the city street with like the fire going everywhere and shots of all the wrestlers and stuff. And so McMahon did, he went from the that to like something completely a bit more contemporary.
Way better.
Well, he'd been using it for like 2 years. Like, why should I change it? There's no need to. Nobody's gonna oppose me. And then they did with this awesome.
Then he went to some Was it like Chris Gaines?
Yeah. Yeah, it sounded like Chris totally did. Yeah, exactly. Vash here says the first Westminster show took place on May 8th, 1877.
Well, there we go. That's Westminster Kennel Club.
That's when it first aired on USA Network.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about the venue as well. Talking about the Mall of America.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Constructed in 92, about 3 years prior.
Mm-hmm.
I always found this interesting. I've never been there, but I believe I've driven by it because it's out in
sure.
Bloomington, Minnesota, in like suburban Minneapolis. And it's built on the site of where the Twins and the Vikings used to play, the old Metropolitan Stadium.
Ah, okay.
Tore it down. They built the Metrodome downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And then they built the Mall of America on that site.
Is the Mall of America still standing?
Yeah, it's still there.
It's still there. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the thing about the Mall of America, it's like it was like the largest mall in America.
Yeah. But second, it was still smaller than the one in Edmonton.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, America. It doesn't sound that appealing. It's just a lot of mall. Like, what if you need to go from like Sears on one end to like, I don't know, GameStop or Radio Shack, Suncoast on the other end.
There you go.
That just sounds like a pain in the ass. Like, I don't need that much mall.
No, it's too much mall. I think the mall up in Roseville is too much mall.
One thing I was not able to ascertain was if, and I imagine probably was, the reason why they did Mall of America was because of Pastamania. Because, like, I feel like Hogan, obviously, he probably had the most complex contract
at the time, yeah.
At the time, up until 2022 with Cody Rhodes in WWE. But, there's a very blatant promo for Pastamania as well during this, which is it's hilarious. It's so comical. Of course, Pastamania only lasts like a couple months. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, I wonder if Hogan was able, if he had that much sway, if he had that much stroke, that he was able to convince them, hey, brother, got a great idea. What about Mall of America? It's next to Pastamania, synergy, brother. And then they were like, fuck it, why not? We'll do it in a mall. It's different.
Yeah, it's different. I imagine that might have been the allure too. It's like, well, it's a different venue. It's not a theater. It's not a small arena. It's a different visual. Yeah, I wonder if that was the case. Oddly, in the book, I looked quite a bit and I couldn't find the reason why doing it Mall of America. Because pretty quickly afterwards, I mean, like the next week, they started doing like a normal circuit, like they did the arenas. Yeah. It's not like they went to like fucking like parks. And well, I guess they did beaches here and there, huh? Well, they did Sturgis.
They did Sturgis, yeah.
And so they did Panama City during spring break. So
that's true, yeah. Yeah, so they would go outside the box a little bit.
Yeah.
A couple weeks before this episode, WWF Raw, just to continue with the comparison aspect of things. This is what was booked on the previous episode of Raw. So this is what they were competing with. Men on a Mission defeated Roy Raymond and Joe Hancock in 2 minutes and 47 seconds.
Squash match.
X-Pac, the 1-2-3 Kid, defeated the Brooklyn Brawler in 1 minute and 32 seconds. At that point, it seems like a beat the clock challenge on Raw.
It does seem that way.
Unfortunately, The Undertaker would have lost because he defeated Tatanka in 6 minutes and 41 seconds. After that, wasn't the main event, though. Before the main event, we had Jean-Pierre Lafitte defeating Scott Taylor. I don't really know much about
3 minutes change, yes.
3 minutes. And then Diesel and the British Bulldog defeated Men on a Mission. So they had 2 matches.
That one ended in no contest after about 2 minutes and 20 seconds, though.
Right, yeah. So a thrilling episode of Raw.
It sounds like it.
The first Nitro, sorry, I have Raw here. The first Nitro did 2.75 million people. It was a 2.9 rating, which is around 2.75 million people. Mm-hmm. Which I know things are different now. Things are different now. I'm sure, like including +3s and social media. I'm sure more people are exposed to an average episode of SmackDown these days.
I would think so, yeah.
But in terms of overall viewership, SmackDown these days would be pretty happy to get 2.7.
Oh yeah, that'd be ecstatic. Hell, Raw would be over the moon.
What did the Cena episode recently do? Was that 2.6?
Oh, was it that high?
It was high. Yeah, it did really well. I think it was like 2.6 million.
No, that's pretty good. That's a good one.
It's funny because the first head-to-head, the one I talked about with like the new intro and stuff, it was also advertised that week, coincidentally. or not coincidentally, as the new fall season of Monday Night Raw begins tonight. Besides having a new intro, there was really nothing.
Anything to generate some measure of excitement for the same
show. Okay. So, yeah, Jean-Pierre Lafitte is now PCO. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. I figured that was probably the case. September 11th, so the second week that Nitro is in existence, WCW actually beat Raw in the first head-to-head, 2.5 to 2.3. That's the rating. So the actual viewership would be closer to like, what, 2.2 million to 2.1 million, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. That sounds right.
But then by September 18th, WWF back on top. By like, I don't know, 100,000 people or something like that.
This is all before those 83 weeks.
Right. Yeah. No, it was exactly.
Oh, here we go. White Brownie has it here.
Great.
White Bischoff chose Mall of America. WCW had not been drawing an audience for a long, long time. We had a hard time getting people to come to television taping. So the idea of going to Mall of America was a way to have the event in a really interesting, unique environment and atmosphere without having to worry whether we'd be able to put 5,000 or 10,000 people in the arena. So it's a bit of camouflage and a lot of smoke and mirrors, but it worked.
Eric Bischoff lies about everything. That shit was because of Pastamania. That bullshit is just said because Hogan really wanted to push Pastamania.
Pastamania, brother.
I can't wait till we get to Hogan's promo on Big Bubba Rogers at Pastamania.
Oh, my goodness.
So anyways, we open up with a sweeping Mall of America shot. I was kind of surprised at how few cars seem to be there. Given how, but I mean, it's like a giant mall, so I don't know.
It's probably several parking garages and spread out over the course of a giant mall.
Right, exactly. The thing that stood out to me also is when they show the inside, like, you know, we get like sort of a crane shot of the actual ring, and even from far away, it looked dirty as fuck. Like they did not get a new ring mat, like the ring apron or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
There was no WCW logo on it. It was just, it looked so completely worn in the middle, like they were just trotting the same fucking piece of. It
was just missing the duct tape you see on the canvases of independent shows.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Yeah. We're introduced to Steve McMichael, and they really introduced him. So I'm pretty sure this is the first time he did anything with WCW. I could be wrong about that. It's within moments that he has a dig at WWF, but it was kind of a confusing one. It was like, this ain't coming to you from no farmhouse or something like that. And there were several times when they take digs at WWF. It all seems very self-conscious. And then Bobby the Brain Heenan comes in and he goes to shake Mongo's hand, and Mongo has a hand buzzer. And he says, never know what to expect from Mongo. And Heenan's like, fuck off, man. And then Bischoff.
Mongo, I guess back then on the commentary is real wild card, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. In wild card, you mean you just don't understand what the fuck he's talking about half the time. It was kind of cool because a little bit later on in the episode, he steps up to Scott Norton when Scott Norton starts shoving Bischoff. So that was good. But Mongo, you know what, man? This dude, if you say nothing else about Mongo, he always looked like he was having fun.
You got that right.
You know, and rest in peace, man. He passed away recently following a long battle with, I believe, cancer. I think it was cancer. No? Was it, what was it?
I thought he had...
Larson's doing his research face right
ALS.
Now. Oh, it was ALS. That's right. Okay. Yeah. Super sad. So anyways, the first match, like we said, was Jushin Thunder Liger versus Flying Brian Pillman. Another interesting thing here in the book was that Bischoff had said, I knew that.
Also, Mongo hasn't passed away yet. He's still alive.
Oh my God, are you serious? I am so sorry about that. Holy shit. Okay, my bad. God, I thought that had happened. Okay, my bad. Anyways, I'm going to move on now because that's embarrassing. Bischoff understood fully that Jushin Thunder Liger was... It didn't say internet darling in here, but he said a favorite of wrestling fandom, basically.
Yeah, basically internet darling, yeah.
Internet darling would be accurate. Like 95, there was internet. It was super early. I don't think...
It was all dial-up, of course, yeah.
I had internet when I was a senior. Yeah, because I was a senior in high school at the time. Yeah. So I had in September 95, I just started my senior year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think that's about when that's probably when we first got it too.
Yeah, Hilton, edit this out. Anyways, fucking cool match though. I swear to God, they were doing stuff that a lot of these people probably just hadn't seen before.
Oh, it's entirely possible.
Especially because a lot of these people were probably just there to like go to fucking Sears or whatever.
Where's Sabaro? Oh, there's a wrestling match here?
Oh, is this the fake stuff? I'll watch this. Holy shit, a surfboard? That's cool. Well, this dude's flipping to the outside. Look at that cool mask he's got on. You know, man.
Sabaro can wait. I'm going to watch this.
Sabaros can wait. Yeah, exactly. The great train. The most noticeable store in this setting was the Great Train Store.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
I assume they sell like model trains. Simply because I would think actual trains would be, too expensive to sell at a mall.
So they had a whole ass store for model trains?
Oh yeah, model trains at various points have been incredibly popular.
Man. Now that's the most niche thing you could possibly do.
You got to fill a mall with something, man. Maybe they open it. All right, rent's cheap. We got to fill this place.
It's nuts to me though that I know the internet, you weren't really selling things on the internet. I don't know what you were doing, just like emailing things back and forth, scamming people, I guess.
That probably popped up pretty early in days of internet, I would imagine. Yes.
I know porn did, I think. But you go to the mall because the store looked giant.
Yeah.
So holy crap. Anyways.
This is good. This was quality stuff here. Pillman gets
they did like a super play. I wonder if people are really curious about hold on a second. This guy, he just did a superplex, right? Why is that not a finish? Later on we get a leg drop. How is that? But then this guy can't finish him off with a superplex.
I know the superplex sounds like an infinitely more impactful move than a leg drop. I know.
They're probably thinking Jushin Thunder Liger. This guy should be challenging Hogan. He's dropping people with superplex.
I know exactly. That's not even his finish.
Yeah, exactly. The finish saw Pillman with a victory roll type thing get the win here. But yeah, I thought this was a terrific match.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Good stuff.
After that, they show earlier in the day, and it's just Sting in front of a bunch of people there at the mall. So it was probably a half hour before they were rolling tape. Mm-hmm. And he says, Ric Flair, no one can hook the Scorpion Deathlock better than yours truly. Yeah. Yeah.
Start pounding his chest there.
He didn't do that in this, but you could tell he had that look in his eye like he wanted to.
Mm.
So the next part is my favorite. It's Hulk Hogan at Pastamania. They somehow corralled a bunch of people who were just antsy for fucking pasta to crowd him and act like they liked him. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just thinking, Hogan, if you're going to attach your IP onto something, you think you want it to be somewhat indicative or representative of the character of Hulk Hogan, right? And when I think of someone who's huge and muscled up, I don't think them eating bowlfuls of pasta. What about a Steakomania,
Well, honestly, he should have just done a GNC integration, the fucking,
Supplementamania, yeah.
Supplementamania. Yeah, exactly. But no, steak, yeah. Well, it's funny because Bischoff intros this. He says, Michael Jordan has his new restaurant. Don Shula has a steakhouse. Well, Hogan has Pastamania. And Hogan is like, hey, everybody. Who's the greatest wrestler in the world? And the crowd is like...
The crowd's probably saying, Liger, I saw what he did over there.
How is it not the dude who just dropped that fool with the superplex? Right, so he's like, who's the greatest wrestler in the world? They're like, we just want our fucking ravioli. And he says, Pastamania is running wild, brother. He said, I got Pastamania running through my brain here on the first Nitro. He said, who's going to beat Bubba? I'm going to drag him all around the Mall of America. I'm going to give him a dose of my Hulkaroos. He looks up at the menu and there's some shit called Hulkaroos.
Oh my
He says, and then this line cracks me up. He says, Big Bubba, you better tighten up your waistline because the Hulkster is slim and trim. I've been eating my Pastamania. And I'm like, hold on a second. No, you have not. No, you have not, sir. You're not eating this shit. I guarantee that. The Hulkster is slim and trim. No, man, all those fucking loaded empty carbs. Oh, man, I was dying. So I dug up this article from the Sportster about Pastamania. And so I'm just going to be reading from this article here. It says, Pastamania offered a selection of pasta for its customers, opting to go for the mix and match route, where Pastamaniacs could pair a selection of 5 kinds of pasta with 5 different sauces. The menu also boasted, quote, the Hulkster's favorite international pastas from around the world, with Hogan's supposed picks being beef stroganoff, Swedish meatballs, turkey tetrazzini, and pasta mexicana. That actually sounds good. The children's menu offered Hulkaroni and cheese, which is obviously macaroni and cheese, and, as he had mentioned and recommended to Big Bubba, Hulkios, shaped in the image of Hulk Hogan himself. It says from him flexing his famous pythons to a portrait of the wrestling icon, who wouldn't want a taste of the Hulkster himself. Sadly, there are scarce accounts of anyone having visited Pastamania, but on an episode of the What Happened When podcast covering the debut episode of Nitro, commentator Tony Schiavone shared his own memory of the Pastamania food. It was okay, he said. Unsurprisingly, Hulk Hogan's Pastamania was not long for this world. It was only a matter of months until Pastamania was closed. Just another side venture of Hogan's that ended up in the garbage pile. So I don't know if this next part is a joke or not, but it says residing there alongside the microwavable Hulkster burgers, Hogan energy drinks, the Hulk Hogan Thunder Mixer, and who knows how many even worse projects that didn't make it off the ground. I've never heard of any of those.
Yeah, I haven't heard of any of those.
Oh, my God.
Haven't heard of any of them.
So, yeah, we get our Pastamania promo there in advance of Ric Flair versus Sting match. And after both competitors enter the ring, the narcissist shows up. Now, another interesting thing that I had not known prior was when Lex Luger was originally going to debut his narcissist gimmick in WWF, part of the first episode of Raw was this really extensive Bobby Heenan video promo where he's talking about he's got this new client named Narcissist. And his name wasn't Narcissist, it was Narcissist. And Vince threw to it and was like, oh, we're going to find out now more about Narcissist. And I was like, the fuck is this guy? And then he starts talking about Narcissist. Well, the thing about Heenan, one of the greatest talkers of all time, is that he had a very slight lisp. And when he would say narcissist, it was the most painful thing to watch, because this promo, I swear to God, is like 5 minutes of him just talking into the camera against a blue background and him just constantly saying narcissist. Yeah. And it's the most uncomfortable thing because you could tell he hates saying this word.
Yeah.
So eventually they just called Lex Luger the narcissist.
The narcissist, yeah.
I
always found interesting because I watched the Luger A&E biography. The quote from Bischoff, how he didn't like Luger personally or professionally and lowballed him with an offer. Yeah. Thinking he would pass on it. In the biography, they made a point of saying that Lex had been on the Lex Express for months. He was totally burned out during the whole experience.
Yeah, right.
And I know that didn't directly precede his return to WCW, but it just seemingly kind of soured him on the whole WWF experience because they built him up so much to be kind of the heir apparent to Hogan. It didn't happen.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And when that didn't happen, I mean, there's actually a quote from Pritchard on that episode where he's talking about Luger. He's on a bus for 3 months straight, basically, doesn't see his family. Yeah, right. That, quite understandably, Luger's a little tired of the whole thing. Yeah, right. And Bruce says something along the lines, yeah, I saw that and I could see he wasn't our guy. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the gist of it.
Dude, like he's not willing or had any desire. Does it why didn't they just kayfabe the bus shit?
I don't know.
Like, just
they actually had him go around and make appearances and do autograph signings and stuff, and he's there signing autographs, and you could tell he just wants to fall asleep or something. Oh my God. He's exhausted. And there's a interesting little behind the scenes bit where Vince is directing him for some promo or vignette or something, and Luger keeps forgetting his lines. Ooh. And Vince is like, hey, it's all right. Yeah. It's like, it's fine. Just take a breath. Essentially, don't put the pressure on yourself and just let it happen. Yeah. It just seemed like at that point he was just totally done with WWF. and his WWF contract, I believe, expired the day before he appeared on Nitro.
Yeah, wow. Because this was talking about how
he went from a house show directly to there, I think.
Yeah, so it was like where is it here? Luger. Hold on a second. So it says in between matches, Sting often spent time on the phone with Larry Full, aka Luger. During one such talk, Full let it slip he was currently working without a written agreement. So according to this, he said he told Sting, "I haven't been under a contract for 6 months. Vince and I are working on a handshake deal." In total disbelief, Sting gathered himself and suggested a return to WCW might be a good career move. He says, "So contractually, you're a free agent right now. If you don't mind, I'll speak with Eric Bischoff." Bischoff recalls offering Lex a paltry $150,000 a year contract, some $350,000 a year less than Lex had been making with WWF. Moreover, the offer was a conditional one based only on his willingness to leave McMahon's company without a trace. Are you saying I can't give Vince any kind of notice? Lex asked. That's correct. Let's see here. I know there was one more little bit about that. About Luger here. I don't have it right here in front of me. Oh, here we go. No, that's not it. Yeah, I mean they did the thing where they snuck him in. So here we go.
Yeah,
it says meanwhile,
long jacket or something like that.
Oh, okay. So here. Meanwhile, in the time since his summit with Bischoff, Luger received a formal contract offer from Vince McMahon. In an unusual lapse of attention, McMahon was oblivious to the possibility of covert Atlanta talks, but regardless, this offer failed to address several pre-existing points of contention. On Friday, September 1st, Lex called Sting to inquire about Bischoff's earlier proposal. 2 days later, on Sunday, 24 hours before the Minneapolis Nitro, and incredibly the same day as Luger was advertised to appear on a WWF card in New Brunswick, Canada, Bischoff reiterated the terms of the deal, $150,000 per year, no notice, everything has to be kept under wraps. I'm in, said Lex Luger. So according to the documentary, he was actually under contract?
I thought it was a while ago that I saw it. Sure. I could be wrong. But it was it was essentially a thing where he just was on a WWE show one day, the next day he was on Nitro.
Yeah, totally. It says, at the airport, he was bundled into a van and driven to a hotel separate from the other wrestlers, minimizing the risk of being seen by fans camping out in the lobby for autographs and pictures. To ensure that no one, not even the boys themselves, could potentially leak out word of his defection, he was instructed to wait in his room until just before showtime. Upon arriving at the mall, he was escorted to an isolated area away from detection, a towel covering his head for good measure. Bischoff then delivered pertinent instructions. At the outset of the Flair Sting match, Luger would first appear, and then at the very end of the show, you'll come out again and get nose-to-nose with Hulk Hogan. So, before the match starts, but after Sting and Flair are in the ring, Luger saunters out. You can sort of see him, cross the path of the great train store.
Yeah.
And
then he just stands there with his hands on his hips.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, he just quantum leaps.
Yeah.
Because the match happened. Sting is sort of looking like, this guy didn't. Flair's like, woo, let's move. Come on, let's do this. So they have the match. And it's a good match because it's Flair and Sting.
Yeah.
Flair, towards the finish, locks on a figure 4. And Sting is trying to reverse it. He's trying to reverse it, thereby reversing the pressure and sending pain shooting to Ric Flair. But Flair gets his way to the ropes for leverage so he can keep it on. Well, Randy Anderson, the ref, comes over. He counts 5, 6, 7. He's like, come on, Flair, let it go, let it go, let it go. And then finally, the bell rings. Now, during the match, Arn Anderson had also walked out. And him and Flair, I guess, had beef at the time because he gets in the ring immediately. Flair stands up. Arn Anderson takes his shirt off. Flair punches him. And then they start brawling to the outside. They sort of disappear for a second. Arn comes back, grabs his shirt, stares at Sting, and then leaves again. So that's how all went down.
Yeah, there's a lot of history between Sting.
Oh yeah, all those guys
and Luger for that matter too.
Yeah, exactly. So all that takes place, and I kind of like this because immediately an angry Scott Norton shows up near commentary Like, we haven't gone to commercial or nothing. Like, Scott Norton shows up, and he's got a piece of paper in his hand that he claims is a contract. And he's like, I signed the contract. I signed this contract. And then and he steps up, and he sort of shoves Bischoff, and Mongo steps up. You know, he's defending his dude. And Norton's in his face like, oh, come on, let's go ahead and let's throw. Well, Macho Man shows up. And he sort of shoves Norton, and he's like, oh, yeah, let's do this. And Norton's like, well, what are we waiting for? Let's do this. And Macho Man says, we're not waiting for nothing. Let's do it now. The mall is going fucking crazy right now.
Wow.
Macho Man gets in the ring. He's ready to throw down.
There's probably a lot of sad people working at Sbarro thinking that half those people there are supposed to be in line for a Stromboli.
They're like, this is the lightest crowd we've ever had. But, like, you know, in about 45 minutes, they're going to be coming over here.
They're going to be hungry from watching all that wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. So Bischoff's like, no, fuck this. Let's go to this video package of Sabu. Now, upon the rewatch of this, I had totally forgotten that Sabu had a video package and was even in WCW.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten about that, too. And the video package has a lot of strobe effect.
It does have a lot of strobe effect.
Like, almost like a nauseating amount of strobe effect. It's almost like an impressionist painting, as you're watching it, because you just see like smears of an image without
mere hints of Sabu.
Yes,
going through tables and shit.
Yeah. It is very impressionistic.
And they're using the familiar. So when you heard it
didn't sound like DDP's because it didn't have because like DDP's
there was no self high five in it.
That and like the chord change from DDP's theme is pretty much just smells
like
Teen Spirit with like a couple chords reversed, and this one didn't have the same kind of chord.
It's strayed a bit more from it, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's very much of the times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
You know. But,
and it's just a bunch of footage of Sabu doing shit at, like, you know, house shows and Saturday night, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if he had actually debuted. No, actually, no. Well, according to Wikipedia, he didn't debut until September 11th. But maybe...
I wonder if he wrestled, like, dark matches or something.
Yeah, maybe he did that.
Matches in a WCW ring.
Yeah, that's right. There were a couple logos here and there.
ECW,
Yeah. So anyways, so Sabu did wrestle in WCW from September of 95 to March of 96, so not very long at all. He did have matches against Alex Wright, Jerry Lynn, and his final match was a win over Disco Inferno. So, yeah. After that, we come back from commercial. Mean Gene is in the ring, and he says something along the lines of, oh, boy, here we are at the Mall of America. I had to think I could have purchased this property back in 1954 for $17,000. But then again, I was 8 years old. Let's go to a commercial or some shit like that. It was weird. Oh, no. Then he announces the winner of a Harley-Davidson sweepstakes.
I feel like that Metropolitan Stadium was probably there in 1954.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, it's built in 56. So.
Okay. He might have said as early as 52. I forget exactly.
Okay, so I guess that's what he's saying. He could have owned the land that the stadium was built on, get money there. They tear that down, build the mall.
So was it like just nothing going on there before the stadium was built? That's why they were able to buy it for so cheap?
Probably.
Okay, who knows? Anyways, it's funny because, like, one of the things that Bischoff had said was WWF was aimed at kids. They were going for 18 to 31 was the specific number he mentioned here. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, Mean Gene and they were talking about buying property in the 1950s. I'm like, I'm not sure how that really appeals to a
I don't know really. And then you got Bischoff's motorcycle fandom coming into play here, giving away a Harley too, huh?
Yeah, so then they had the winner of the Harley-Davidson sweepstakes, Mike Hill from Cullman, Alabama. They fucking gave this guy a 1995 Harley Softail, which I had to look that up because I'm unlike Eric Bischoff. I'm not. It's an actual motorcycle.
Well, I know it's a motorcycle, but I don't know what a Softail means.
I thought maybe, is it a jacket? They gave him an actual motorcycle, but they didn't like show the guy or anything. It was just like a quick screen. Oh, congratulations, Mike Hill from Cullman, Alabama. Like, I'm kind of curious. I actually forget what is a sweepstakes.
What?
Like, yeah, is it like a lottery or something? Like, what is it? You just call in and put your name in?
Like, you put your name in and they draw it, yeah.
So it's like a lottery, but you don't pay for it.
Yeah.
Do you have to pay for it?
I don't think so.
Because I honestly, when I was like sweepstakes, I was like, oh yeah, how do you enter that? Like, what do you do?
Well, it wasn't the Publishers Clearinghouse of sweepstakes, but you had to buy magazines to get in that.
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, you did. I remember because I was like, Mom, now the commercials, they come up to show your house the giant check.
But
I want a
why do
giant
they give
check.
you a check though?
Because you buy a certain amount of magazines. I think back in the day, you bought X number of magazines. That gets you a certain number. I could be way off. Certain number of entries into the sweepstakes. Sort of like a raffle.
So sweepstakes are free. So it's illegal to require you to buy something or pay to enter to increase your odds of winning. Okay. So you only get one shot. Okay. All right. But then the lottery you pay to get into.
Yeah. Or like a raffle, you pay to get into that.
Right. Yeah.
Really, they call it publishing clearinghouse called the sweepstakes made you buy shit, and you could they lied. They said sweepstakes were free to enter. So you just said, right?
Well, according to this very basic
they made you pay to get into that one. Because I was like, Mom, this entry.
You don't pay. I think you have to buy something, which is different than paying for it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have to buy something to gain entry. You're essentially paying for it, but you get something else. In return,
that's what they call a loophole.
I guess so.
So, anyways,
like, Mom, give me a subscription to Sports Illustrated or something, and we can get in and get this giant check. What do you say?
Can I get WWF magazine and then get into the WCW sweepstakes? I don't think it works that way.
No.
Anyways, we got a promo here for WCW Saturday Night. Johnny B. Bad, who would be hugely problematic these days, versus Dick Slater. Versus Dick Slater, Dirty Dick Slater. Sting and the Macho Man versus the Blue Bloods. Not Terrorizing and Regal. It was Regal and I don't know.
Dave Taylor?
Dave Taylor, probably. Yeah, I think Dave Taylor. And then we're going to get a big update about Fall Brawl War Games, but I don't know what that was. Talk to me about this
promo. Right?
What'd you think about this Michael Wall Street promo, dude?
Why did he never look at the camera?
Why is it one of the best talkers of our generation was sprung from the loins of one of the worst talkers of his generation?
So imagine I'm Michael Wall Street, and this is the camera right here.
You're looking at
So imagine if I'm doing the whole show like this. Only occasionally doing that.
Yeah.
Like twice in a minute.
With our little boxes, it looks like we're talking to each other.
Exactly.
You know?
It works.
But when you're supposed to be speaking to somebody, you're just doing this the whole
when you're supposed to connect with your audience.
I don't know.
And you're looking off.
No, you do. You know what? Probably is. He's coming from WWF. And Vince had a thing about people look. Well, I guess some of them he did. Hogan would always look in the camera. Those old interviews
he looked in the camera back in the day. I think the not looking in the camera thing was a more recent deal. I mean, they literally had whole promos where people were in front of the green screen.
That's all they would do. Yeah, that's all they would do.
And talk to the camera.
Oh, dude, I don't know then. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they're cue cards.
That could be. This is a pretty extensive. Once again,
pretty long.
He dogs the WWF's new generation. He says, the new generation is nothing but the few generation, which is terrible. He says, I'm in WCW because it's all about power and money. He says, you got the best wrestlers in the world here: Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Vader,
Dude,
Sting.
Go watch Jushin Thunder Liger. You'll update your list.
Jushin Thunder Liger. Now you can add Michael Wall Street to that list. And then this is annoying. He says, I'm sure the IRS is going to be watching, but that's cool because as you go down the road, you'll know for sure that Michael Wall Street is a real player. This is what bugs me about that. You can totally make an IRS reference because that was his deal in WWF, but at least try to make it clever. Say, I'm sure the IRS is going to be watching, but that's okay because I always pay my taxes or something like that, like...
Yeah,
or I've left behind.
That's cool because I have a great accountant and several offshore accounts that can't be traced.
Right. No, exactly. Like he's trying to evade the IRS.
Yes.
But it was just to throw that in there to throw it in there.
Yeah.
Again, one of the more creative minds of our generation sprang forth from this guy.
Yeah. Then we got our main event.
Big Bubba Rogers versus Hulk Hogan. This was interesting to me because it was kind of after, but not that long after. So Big Bubba Rogers, of course, came in, Boss Man came in as basically just Boss Man again.
Yeah.
But then WWF was like, this dude's just Boss Man. You can't do that. And so he became the Guardian Angel.
Guardian Angel, yeah.
Right, which was an actual group of street vigilantes back then.
Yeah.
That wore red jackets and red caps.
Red berets, yeah.
Red berets, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he became that. But then I guess during a rivalry with Sting, I looked this up. He said, I'm going back to my roots. I'm Big Bubba Rogers. But then he just wore a suit. And I don't know if he was supposed to be was he supposed to be maybe he had turned from a street cop, a uniform to a detective?
Maybe he's a PI.
Or a PI? or like maybe a lieutenant of some sort, because he came out with 2 uniformed officers to his match.
Yeah. So you'd think some sort of detective then.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, like
look at this forensics lab now.
Look at this crime scene here. That's about to go down, about to get slaughtered by fucking Hulk Hogan with a leg drop. It's funny. What cracks me up though is that, because you'd always heard like around the time when Hogan left WWF is because he couldn't hack the idea that people didn't fucking like him anymore.
Yeah.
Like the crowd was starting to turn on him. They wanted more, interesting, dynamic characters like Sid.
Yes, of course. Who doesn't want Sid?
And Hogan had a hard time accepting this. So he's like, I'm going to go, go do Thunder in Paradise. And then he realized that was crap. So he was like, well, WCW will pay me a lot of money and let me do whatever I want. So I'll do that. Well, like in the front row, 2 huge cardboard signs. One says Hogan stinks. And the other one says Hogan is. Oh no, I'm sorry. It does say Hogan sucks. It's not even like the lighter version of sucks. It sucks. And then one is Hogan is a wimp, which is a bit more PG than Hogan sucks.
Yeah. He'd only been back about a year because he signed with WCW 94.
94, yeah. So people are already fucking sick of his shit.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing over and over.
Maybe they went to Pastamania and had like some diarrhea afterwards.
That could be. They got food poisoning.
Like, this Hulkaroni and cheese really fucked my stomach up.
You're a wimp, Hogan. Your food sucks.
Anyways, 7 minutes later, and 7 minutes after this match starts, leg drop, or big boot, leg drop, and guess who wins?
Hulk Hogan. Correctly, this match is kind of garbage too.
Yeah, it's not a very good match. I was watching it and I was like, man, I thought Steve Austin said Big Boss Man was like one of the most underrated big men. And
I mean, he always moved really well.
Yeah, he could move really well, but like you're in there with Hogan, you're just, hey brother, we're gonna do it my way.
It's just punch. That's all it is. Nothing that interesting.
So right after this match, Dungeon of Doom attacks. They were feuding with Hogan for like ever. Mm-hmm. And then Luger gets in. And he helps out, and it's all frenzied and stuff, and they're getting everybody away, including the Zodiac, the Booty Man,
mm-hmm.
and
Beefcake.
then Beefcake, yeah, and then they back into each other, and whoa, they think that they're bad guys each other, but then they're like, yeah, and then they're about to throw, and then Sting and Macho Man jump in there, and I'm here to keep things civil, yeah, and then they're sort of keeping them away from each other. Hogan's like, you need to go back to where you came from. Meaning another dig at WWF. And so we go to commercial. Now, according to the Guy Evans Nitro book, when they announced that they went to commercial, Luger stopped being in character. And he just sort of was like, okay, cool, whatever. And Hogan fucking yelled at him. And he says something along the lines of, you're messing with my family's money, brother. You better shapen up. Something like that. And so Luger was like, oh, shit, this is where the big boys play, right?
Yeah.
And so he gets back into it. Apparently, after they went off the air, he tried to apologize to Hogan, but Hogan wasn't having any of it. So I'm kind of shocked that like 2 years later, Hogan dropped the title to him clean.
Yeah. So back from commercial, Luger says, I'm here for one reason. You're the number one wrestler in the world. Apparently, he didn't see Jushin Thunder Liger's match.
No, he came too late for that. He was at the Great Train Store instead.
There we go. You wear that belt. That makes you the only world champion, and I'm here to take that belt. And then
Hogan says, let me tell you something, brother. And then Luger's like, no, you let me finish. He says, so I've been where you've been, WWF. I've beaten the same people you've beaten, Yokozuna. Wait, no, maybe not. Yeah, well, he body slammed him anyways.
Body slam, but he didn't beat him. Those count-out counts.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it does. Technically, it does. You're right. Yeah, Yokozuna. Yeah. He says, I'm tired of playing with kids. I'm here to get it on with the big boys. That means you. I don't care if it's next month, next year, 5 years from now, I'm going to get my shot. And Hogan says, he says, you see this, brother? And he pulls up the championship. He says, I'm the champ. He says, you've been playing games. He says, I know where you started. I know where you've been. And when you come here and get in my face, there's thousands of Hulkamaniacs at my back. Not those two guys right there with the sign that says Hogan's a wimp and Hogan sucks. But all these other people are Hulkamaniacs. He says, but as great as you may be, and I know you're great, you don't have to prove anything to me, brother. We don't have to wait till next week or next month. You just stick that stinky paw of yours out there, brother. I'll shake it, and I will put it on the line next week. So you will have to wait till next week in Miami right here in Nitro. It was funny because like Luger saying, I might have to wait 5 years to get my shot. And then Hogan saying, you don't have to wait till next week, but I'll put it on the line next week. So fucking weird. And then that's it. That's Nitro for you. The very first. I'll be honest with you. Like compare the two, the first Nitro, the first Raw. The first Nitro's got it going on, man.
Yeah, it's a much better show.
It is.
It is a much better show.
Absolutely. Let's see here. We do have some questions about the first Nitro right here on the Patreon. Steve Klain says, where would be the most inappropriate place to wear that great Lex Luger puffy shirt, the pirate shirt that he was wearing? It was a collarless shirt. Most inappropriate place. I'd say a pool party. You're supposed to be wearing like board shorts or a swimsuit or whatever.
Well, you can wear board shorts and then have your puffy shirt on.
Not entirely appropriate, though.
I mean, that's not ideal.
You'd get a lot of questions.
You probably would, but...
Yeah. What's up with that shirt?
It's a pirate shirt.
All right, take it off. We're going swimming.
It's water here. Pirates.
Okay. All right. Well, give me a less appropriate place.
Nash has a good one here. Eating some messy ribs. You go to Chili's. You want some of those baby back ribs.
Do you want a bib, sir?
No, I'm good. Oh, shit. You look down. You got sauce all over your shirt.
Yeah.
Might as well throw that shit in the garbage. That ain't coming out.
That's good. Nikyle says, what was the first Windows/Mac computer you ever used? Mine was Windows 95, of course. This was 1995 when Windows 95.
Probably
was. You stop me up. Stop me up. Never stop.
Probably was Windows 95.
The first Windows computer I ever used. God, what was it back then? The actual designation of the computer, because everybody had like it was like a slight variation depending on the expensive one or not. I forget. It's like an A3 or some shit. I don't know what it was. But yeah, no, mine was a Windows 95. But we had like a Commodore 64 before that.
Yeah, we had one of those too, yeah.
Yeah.
Luis Ariza asked, what are some hobbies you guys had that you wish you had continued? What are some hobbies you had in 1995 that you wish you had continued?
I mean, I was buying comic books on the reg until, I don't know. I don't really buy. I mean, I still do. I go to the comic book store quite a bit. That was the only hobby I ever had. And drawing.
My hobby in 1995 was playing guitar, and I still do that. So
yeah. I'm trying to think, is there any other hobbies that I had back then? I don't really have any other hobbies. Was that? I don't know. Holing up in my room and being a nerd. I still do that to this day. It's my job. Mondo says, rank the WCW careers of the following wrestlers better known for their WWE runs. Piper, Savage, Hart.
Macho Man probably had the best WCW career out of all of them.
I agree with that.
And I actually don't even think it's that close.
I agree with that, actually, yeah.
And then it's probably Brett, and then it's probably Piper, because Piper was not around very much, if memory serves.
He wasn't around very much, and a lot of his promos, like I watched a Brian Zane video about Piper's time in WCW. Dude, his promos were fucking horrible. You can't, none of those are appropriate these days. Yeah. All right, that's all the questions we have for the WCW Nitro Episode 1 review. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Actually, we can talk about this real quick. What do you want to do next?
What about the first episode of Hardcore TV, ECW?
So do you want to put that up for a vote against try Raw again?
Yeah, let's try Raw
again. See if people, okay. So we'll put that up to vote for the patrons and the YouTube channel members. And then next month, February, we will do that. All right. And then you can watch it exclusive for a timed exclusive on the Patreon and the YouTube. I'm sorry, Patreon and YouTube channel members. And then I'll go live for the channel like a couple weeks after that.
Indeed.
So thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.